Hi, today we're going to see how to use the workspace in Hathor. So first of all, we will open the Hathor menu and go into controllers and choose field editor, which makes this window appear. And at this point, this window is just floating window. If I open the second one, the same, field editor again, as you can see, it just reacts like it would do in Windows, where when you click on a window, it gets it at the front. So if we want to change that and get this window fixed in that screen, we can right click, choose Dockable, and then left click on the title bar here and move it around. So as soon as you see that, if you move enough, you see this gray rectangle all around the empty area, and you just release the left click, and it will take all the available space in this window. And as you can see, the second one is still a floating window, which means this one is always in front. Even if I click on the background here, this one stays at the front. So if I wanna get this window docked at this first one, I just right click again, Dockable, and then left click on the title bar, and I can move around at the top, at the left, at the right, or at the bottom, and I release the left click when I am at the right location. So let's say I want it on the right side. I just go to the right since I get my rectangle, and I release the left click, which gives me now two windows side by side, and they are really docked into this subscreen. So let's have a small word about the subscreens. As you can see at the top here, you can see you have four small tabs, and each tab is a subscreen, and each subscreen can contain as many windows as you need. For example, if we have a look into this tab 3, as you can see here, you can have a lot of windows with different contents and different datas displayed. So let's come back to our subscreen 2, and then on this one, if we change our mind and say I don't want this window here on the left, but I want it at the bottom, I just need to right click on the title bar and undock, which extract it from the subscreen. So it's again now a floating window and still dockable because I didn't remove this option. And if I left click and move to the bottom and I release the left click, I get it at the bottom. So as you can see, it's pretty convenient to have exactly the windows at the location you need. Small trick to remember. If now I open a new window here, let's say this one, for example, and sometimes when you are not still comfortable with this docking system, you might be able to use the full screen button here, like you have in any window OS, like Windows or Mac and so on. And doing that, of course, it looks like you dock on the entire screen. But the difference is that doing that, it's not docked into a subscreen. It takes all the subscreen surface, and it's actually in front of any docking things. So, for example, if I move now to subscreen 3, you don't see anything changing, and I could do that for any subscreen, because actually it is changing, but behind this full screen window. I can show it now, just getting back to the floating format. As you can see, behind it has changed. But take care of that, because it's something that when you are still not very familiar with this docking system, you could choose to easily check this option here to get your full screen. But in this case, it will be always in front, and everything happening behind will keep invisible. So just take care of that. If I want to change this subscreen with another one, because for example, I would like to get this subscreen in subscreen 3 instead of 2, and I would like to swap these 2 and 3 subscreen. So I can go on the button here, and I can do different things. I can clear the subscreen 2, which will just remove any content in this subscreen, so the 2 windows here would be removed. Or I can swap the screen content, so the screen is exactly the physical monitor where we are now, and I could swap it with another monitor. Or I could swap the subscreen content, which means this subscreen 2 here, what do I want to swap it with? So let's say with screen 2 and subscreen 3, because this current monitor where we are now is a screen 2, and in this screen 2 I want to swap with the subscreen 3. I click on it, and now you see that I have replaced my subscreen 2 with what was first in the subscreen 3. And if I go into the subscreen 3 now, I can see I've got my subscreen 2. So I've just swapped the content of the 2 subscreens. So as you can see, you can really arrange your workspace in a very fast way on any screen you need, and even on any subscreen of each monitor. We can also switch to another subscreen from the console keyboard. So that's very easy as soon as you understand the numbering of the screens and subscreens. So for example, this screen here is number 2, as we said, and inside this screen 2 we have 4 subscreens. We are currently on the subscreen 3, and if I want to move to subscreen 2, I could say on the console I could press 2.1 screen, 2.2 screen, 2.3 screen, and so on. So you can easily switch from one subscreen to another subscreen. So of course you could do it on other screens. We can only see one here, but of course if you have a second one, you could say 1.3 and screen, which would change the other monitor display. So then let's see how to adjust our display. For example, here I have a lot of empty space that I could use more efficiently. And so, for example, I could press Shift on my Alpha keyboard and move my wheel on the mouse, and I can zoom in to get a very big display, such that now I can see inside each box which kind of information I need. You can do the same from the console. So it's using the Alt key here on the numeric keypad, and you press the Alt key, and holding it, you just move up and down your mouse. So from the desk or with the Shift and the mouse wheel. Something small trick about the display. For example, if you have this kind of display with buttons and text, so as usual you just click in the window and Shift and wheel, or Alt and console wheel. But now if you want to get the text bigger, you just press Control on your Alpha keyboard and move the mouse wheel, and independently you can adjust the size of the text, which is very important. Again, I can choose how things are displayed by default. So, for example, if I go into Setup and Preference, and then in User Interface, there are a couple of things here that lets you decide how you want your things displayed. So, for example, the default browser zoom is 130 here. So what does it mean? It means that if I go into File and Open Library, for example, I have this display here with big letters. If I want to get more details or a longer list in my window, I need to get these characters smaller. So I can say here, let's say at 100, and if I open now File and Open Library, as you can see, I get a much smaller text, such that I can display more in the same window size. The other thing you can do here is the double menu size, which is click now. So that means that if I open the Hathor menu, I get these big letters as well. And if I uncheck this option and press Hathor again, I see a very smaller menu. So it's up to you to decide, depending on your screen resolution, monitor size, and so on, which is the best suitable for you. The other thing we can see now is the anchor here. You can see at the top right of your field editor windows a small anchor, which has a small yellow dot, which means the anchor is activated. So you can press on it to disable it, and you can enable it such that if I enable both windows here, what does it mean? Let me get this size larger, and then now if I press here one channel, as you can see, this window reflects the same selection because these two windows are linked together. So anything I do in this window will be copied in this one. And of course the way around, which means if I press this one and this one, I get the same above. So this is a way to decide if you need to have the same actions on different field editor windows, or if you want to separate. For many reasons, sometimes if you work with several playbacks, it can be very useful that when you select something here and you do things, maybe it doesn't act on this one, such that when I press here, you see that I have no selection done here, and that will let me do different things here, like recording groups and things, which doesn't depend on the action I have on this window. You can really split your workspace in different areas. Let's talk about now the link option here, which lets you link two windows together, but in a different way. So we will open a new window here to limit the available space, like that, and we will decrease the size here, and the same here, and we will change the way the channels are displayed in the window, which ones are displayed. So we can click here on this button and change between different topics. So if we choose numeric is to say that you will display all the created instruments in your show. Okay. Then, if we link this window together, as you can see, automatically this one, the bottom one, will extend the content of the top one. So, for example, this one goes to 88. You know, if I move, I scroll this window here, the second one will change respectively to display the end of the list of channels. So it's a way to extend your list of things in different windows. So let's go back into this option here with very important things that you can do here. So for example, we choose numeric, which lets you display all the instruments of a show. The pact was the one we were first, where you see only the channels which are about to be used in a short time. So these ones are displayed here because they are the next ones to come up in our sequence, depending on how we configure these windows here with these small arrows. So the pact will limit the number of channels to what are useful at a time in the sequence. So if I press go, maybe I will make some new ones appear because they are used now in the sequence, such that you have a kind of usable channels at any time, which were really active in the sequence. So this is the packed option. Then you can have only selected channels. So now, as you can see, no more channels are displayed. So if I go back to Packed and I press these 3 channels here and I go back into Selected, now I have only these 3 selected channels because they are currently selected, which means that if I deselect them just by double clicking somewhere in the dark background, they will disappear because there is no more selected channels here. But that's a convenient way to decide what you really want to get into a window, field editor window. For example, I would like to have these 3 first channels here in this top window because there are color changes and I need to get them all the time in front of me. So I just select them and I switch to the selected channels. But remember that, of course, as soon as I will select something else and deselect these ones, they will disappear. So, because I want to fix them into this window, I can now say locked. And the fact they are locked, if I double click now to deselect, as you can see, they are still there because I have locked on this selection. Which means that now I could have only these color changers here with a good size, and in the bottom one I could choose, so I unlink, I need to remove the anchor to not link those 2 windows together because I want to do different things. So this time I go back to Packed and I say I want all my Robin spot here. So I take from this one to this one and go to selected channels. And again, I lock into this display. So now, as you can see, I have in this top part here the scrollers, and in this window here only my Robin MMX, and so on. And you can get as many channels, windows as you need on your screen. Let's have a look to the other option here. So you have a used option, which will display automatically all the used channels in the show, in the play. So all these channels you can see here are used somewhere in the show. It can be in a sequence, it can be at some masters or chasers and so on. But at a time they are used, stored in the data of the show. And at last, there is this small option at the bottom of each field editor window, the stage here. And as you can see, for the moment it's not checked. That means I only see the field, the playback content. And if I check this one, I will see some of the things coming up, depending on what is used in my play. So it can be something coming from different playbacks or submasters or whatever things you can control outside of the main playback. So this check here lets you know exactly what is in on the output going to the stage. And now the last topic of this tutorial, we need to talk about the Play browser. This Play browser, you can find it here. It's a small tab at the top left of the screen, on each screen. You just click on this tab, which will open a temporary window. So as soon as you press somewhere else, it will disappear. It just folds automatically. So if I want to get it all the time, I just need to pin it. So there is this small icon here. You click on the pin, and it will fix now even if you click elsewhere. It will fix this menu. And this menu is very important. We will see that in further tutorials, but it contains all the objects of a show, and that's a very, very convenient way to quickly call things, get informations on everything, track things, and so on. So it's something you should get always on your side here, because you can drag and drop and so on. So I strongly suggest to keep this menu all the time opened. And the last things to know is when you have got all the things exactly as you need, as you want to work, you just go into the Hathor menu, into the setup, and in the setup go into the screen layout. Screen layout is will store all the data related to the workspace. So windows, time of content, zooms, and everything, filters, and so on. So it's very easy. You just go into this menu and say Store Screen Layout, which will browse to your hard disk. And you have just here to type name, and you record. And that's it. Now, every time you will need to get back all your arrangements on your screens, you just go into Hathor menu, Setup, Screen Layouts, and this time you will choose Load. And when loading, you will find back your file. So this file can, of course, be stored on a USB stick, removable hard drive, and whatever storage you need. And you can go through different consoles and hardwares and PCs and so on with you. Or you will have always your preference of working. So that's it for the workspace, and see you later.